Developer of REST APIs, you have to ensure that your API interface follows certain standards, so callers are guaranteed consistency among your endpoints. In this video, we're going to look at some of the consistency standards for REST APIs. The first consistency standard we're going to look at is best practices for verbs. Consistent use of verbs is a standard that defines REST APIs. The get verb is used to query or retrieve data. It's typical to have a get endpoint that retrieves the entire collection of a certain resource type, as well as a get endpoint to retrieve a single instance of the resource based on unique identifier. It's also common to have optional filter arguments so the resource collection can be filtered in ways that make sense in context of the expected usage of the API. A get endpoint typically returns a 404 not found status code if a specific identifier is specified and that identifier is not found. Post initiates an action or creates a new resource. In the case of creating a new resource, it's common for the new resource to be assigned a unique identifier. Put is used to update or replace an existing resource. It's important to note that a put should always update the entire resource. For this reason, an instance of the updated resource is typically sent as input to the put endpoint. It's acceptable for a put endpoint to return a 400 bad request status code if the resource sent to the put does not exist. But these days, it's also commonplace for a put endpoint to create the resource if it doesn't already exist. And finally, the delete verb permanently deletes a resource. While verbs define the method type, the endpoint or URL describes the resource being accessed. Endpoints should be noun-based. The endpoint combines with the verb to completely describe the action. For example, if the verb is post and the endpoint is widgets, it's clear that a new widget is being created in the widgets collection. APIs should implement all of the CRUD methods, that is, create, read, update, and delete. This offers the full suite of get, post, put, and delete endpoints. Verbs must be used consistently, so they represent a single operation on a given resource. They should not be overloaded. For example, if a controller in an API manages widgets, then there should only be one get endpoint to retrieve the list of widgets. There may be another endpoint to retrieve a single widget, but that's a different operation from retrieving all widgets. One of the great things about REST APIs is that they're discoverable. This means that the caller can glean from the standards how to call basic operations of the API and what endpoints they cannot predict they can call the API to get a list of. This means your REST API should have a common endpoint that returns details about custom operations available in your API. REST API conventions lead to